Welcome everyone. Today we have our another new episodes and we will discuss on community development. We have our world famous speaker Lisa, and she's going to discuss about community development, which is very important for from my point of view. I work with Wisdom Affairs, I build up communities and so on, and I find something very interesting from Lisa. So, Lisa, uh, my first question for you: how can talented individual use their skill to create lasting positive change in their local communities? How you work, how your approach actually helpful for emerging economy?
Well, uh, to tell you the truth, how this started was a number of years ago when um, when the first opportunity for dancers to use their skills as part of Olympic sport came in. Um, what happened at that time was I had watched the ballroom dance culture work to become a sport in the Olympic Games. The end result was, well, it wasn't very pleasing. In fact, what occurred actually tore the culture in two. And then I watched as that occurred two times more with two other dance cultures. Modern dance, from which we got rhythmic gymnastics and ballet, and the ensuing methods by which they were promoted involved reality television, which actually didn't turn out to be reality at all. Um, so when I actually worked a number of years inside for a federal facility designing programs at government request to get cultural education into the schools across my nation, finally, after a period of time, I designed two programs that made a lot of money for a group called the Young Men's Christian Association, known as the YMCA. And in 2018, the National Board of Education put cultural education back onto the accepted curriculum for the nation. In my nation, that's just one step. I started working to get different states to do this. At this point in time, what had happened was my state, California, started to offer advanced degrees at all their universities for those who practice cultural activities of all kinds. And then a little over 4 years ago, they made a new law, a Proposition 28, a guarantee to spend $1 billion every year to restore cultural education back to every school in this state. I'm now waiting on a group called the World Council of Mayors. They came to me 8 months ago to tell me they had 4 other states whose largest cities agreed to get the same job done. I'm waiting for the ceremony where they're going to tell me about a number of others that they've done. So that's 5 states. We've got the permissions. We're gathering the personnel. We've got 45 states to go, 5 territories. And of course, my nation is on the edge of a civil war. But of course, that's not my job. But the second job, in 2017, I was pulled into a foreign nation as an international sport judge for a world qualifying event. There, I was met by a member of the International Olympic Committee who told me of the Russian Federation plan to make breakdancing into a new Olympic sport. Well, by this time, I'd watched them try to do this with 3 other dance cultures. End result, none of them became a sport. What happened instead was the argument within each culture of art versus sport took them all and tore them into 2, and they started to diminish. So I knew the Russians were probably up to no good. I told the IOC that breaking is one of the pillars of the hip hop culture, the largest culture we're practicing on the planet today. And that to take a dance away from the culture that feeds it is called genocide. And I started right away to gather as many practitioners of this culture to me as I could, using internet and social media to have them unify. And then finally, when I advised a number of fellows on how to get 19 breakdancers out of Kabul, Afghanistan, when that nation fell, well, that wound up in the international news, which brought me to job 3, which I believe is why I'm here with you today. just about 4 years ago, I was approached by 3 organizations out of Canada that got themselves together to call themselves UnityNet International. They asked me to share with them all the connections I'd made since 1997. And of course, you can imagine how I felt about that. Total strangers to me. But when they explained to me their program, I came back and said to them, well, what you've described is very much the same sort of system that's practiced by the network of networks of nonprofit collaboratives worldwide, which is a series of structures that have been getting built since the mid-1800s to restore social and community infrastructures and the strength of nations in areas of constant conflict and mass migration. So I got started, and now where we are, I've got over 4,800 connections in over 50 nations, 33 of which are on the continent where we began, Africa. And we're presently in the section of this program called Critical Mass, where we're working to sign papers with 3 other multinational organizations to form the alliance. And I've actually been part of beginning discussions for negotiating peace between Rwanda, DR Congo, and the United States. Those negotiations are ongoing in a number of other nations. Kenya has already agreed and signed. Negotiations are now going on in Uganda, and soon after that, Nigeria. And they'll be going nation by nation in our efforts to, well, end their constant conflict and mass migration issues. So how this begins is these nonprofit collaboratives, they're kept small. We have to maintain the transparency that a collaborative nonprofit system needs to have, as well as not be so large that it would be possible for anyone within to keep good information from the rest. That's a conflict of interest. And of course, it's the number one reason such programs fail. But what I do when I speak to people on the ground is I ask them, gather together those that you've worked with before on other larger programs with members of the collaborative system who come in for 2-3 months at a time with programs they wish to run. And once that has been done, I bring them into a process called the Informed Consent Protocol, where I tell them, especially how this program has been built in other communities, literally from the ground up. And of course, when I told that phrase to the civil society in Kenya, 4 days later, their president, Ruto, came on television to say that he wanted all the nonprofits in his nation to drop what they were doing and join his From the Ground Up program. And I laughed so hard upon hearing that, my sides ached the rest of the day. But essentially what happens here is I'm sensitizing charity organizations on how to reorganize themselves into the collaborative system, where they can use the information they already gather every day to be able to negotiate for land, buildings, tools, equipment, services of all kinds. This is because, well, we're entering the age where information, data, is going to be soon becoming more valuable than anything that lies under the soil. And I've found throughout this process that that is the primary reason many of these nations are in conflict. That nations who believe that they're bigger and stronger through data have been able to find out the value of what lies under their soil, and they have a number of methods by which to get at that. A good example has been the nation of Mozambique. A few years ago, satellite technology revealed that they had what was seen at the time as the largest deposit of gold underneath their soil. Within a few months, what we saw was, boom, civil war, which has divided the nation, scattered their social and community infrastructures, Their country no longer has the ability to use the information that they had from these groups to be able to negotiate decent services and monies, and has been had to resort to begging, which is what I've seen over and over again. So the concept here is really quite simple. Some of our partners, they negotiate for development funds with these nations to begin to restore these programs and go through a number of studies with other universities and institutions around the world, taking part and enhancing and restoring their own internal development of their colleges, universities, institutions that lost their ability to fulfill their promise of internships to their students due to graduate. By taking part in these collaborations with groups worldwide, we assist them from building, yes, literally from the ground up, more stabilized communities, reorganize and restore social infrastructures so that it's no longer every man for themselves, but the community working at large with what they have to start pulling in other groups. So what occurs here, once all these groups or individual want to be associations, and they're called this because they know each other, have been sensitized and put through document protocols used by the network of over 10 million collaborative systems worldwide. They send those documents as well as the MOU that they've signed amongst themselves to UnityNet International and our internal administration, which we're on the verge of having at this moment in time. Once everything is recognized and okayed as being following the protocols of the system, they get certified as nonprofit collaborative systems, in which case the rules for them change. Due to the number of people that they give services to as an association, as a whole, they can begin to use collective bargaining techniques to bring down the cost of common goods and services for everyone. Vendors love large deliveries. It's their favorite thing in the world. But for those opportunities, they drop the per unit price. The more, the better. Also, during this period, we do ask for them to go into the immediate community to look for land that's not being used. The property owners there, when they allow collaborative systems to work land that they've been paying taxes on, that hasn't been used, what happens instead is they get forgiveness of the taxes they pay. Plus, their name, corporate entity, or logo will appear on every piece of advertising that this association has about the activities that are going on at that space, which essentially makes that owner look like a hero to the community at large, changes his social status. And of course, there are, for larger plots, allotments that can go to some of these owners as a result of making arrangements with the association for a small portion of the monies that they make off that space in classes, in goods that are sold, in attendance fees for those who come in for cultural activities or lessons of all kinds. But the space, due to where it is in the community and its visibility to the community at large, does also attract other members of the community. And these are the poor, who of course offer up their hands and work in exchange for a meal. A normal occurrence, which means that these associations get extra sets of hands for repairs, creation of new structures, smoothing out roads, which vendors really love. But later on, as this open space starts to attract even more, then people coming in to learn techniques on how to plant and grow, how to sow, the community activities and cultural groups that come by to perform. It also is going to attract small businesses, ones that are just starting, looking for opportunities, they'll see all these people coming to this central space and want to know if they can be a part of that with a banner or a booth or a table, for which they also pay a fee. So between classes and small businesses, these associations start bringing in extra income they didn't anticipate before. And with these businesses, well, some have shops in the community, others factory farms outside, plus family farms that are being developed by a number of singular nonprofits or charity organizations. That puts forward an opportunity for the poor who come forward on a regular basis, which indicates a habit, the possibility that they're ready for change in their lives. Well, there are job training programs that can be made available to them as well. And of course, the business community loves this for themselves. Plus, they'll start spreading that word for those larger groups. And through this, well, what happens is those businesses at that space start to look for ways that they can combine with the association. And they build small business administrations to set up ways of keeping that space safe. Because of the resource that they've been able to provide. Other community-based groups, other people of good works, seeing all of this, want to know, how did you get this done? Who are you working with? Which means other associations start to form. Natural attrition. And as they do their general work every day, eventually someone stops and says, look, we've got all this information that we've been using to get what we need. How about we take that information and combine it for even bigger and better things? And that's the beginning of the second level of this process, which is the regional partnership, as these different associations come together and benefit from all that information. This is when other groups start to step in to assist in organizing. Well, a regional partnership, what they really do is organize. First thing they'll do is organize all the information that they get from these different associations that have come together. But soon they organize the schools. We have a group called the Global Sister Schools Program. This is made of people from not just regular schools, but institutions, colleges, universities, think tanks, brain trusts, government departments. What they'll be doing is getting all these different schools together to discuss the curriculum they offer and identify those that have special programs like remedial learning or classes for those youth with special gifts or special needs. And when these schools get together and sign their own memorandum of understanding, they become a new type of nonprofit that, well, in my country, America, we call it a school district, but it does have a lot of other names all around the world. And these schools constantly interact with each other using a series of academic competitions, many of which, well, in areas where conflict isn't an issue, they already know these. They practice them all the time, like chess tournaments, science fairs, spelling bees, competitions on animal husbandry, and who can grow the biggest, fattest, meanest looking squash. Something that the business communities just dive into with their banners, booths, tables, and the fees they pay to the district system to be able to get this done. They even bring in bigger businesses to offer up prizes for the winners. In my nation, our national spelling bee, those students who make it to that level, that's an automatic 4-year college scholarship. A wonderful opportunity. And then we have United Countries School Sports Council, who's been working on 6 different continents to train national and international sport coaches and adjudicators. And of course, we know they're not the only one. There's a lot of groups that do this. Now, at those levels, there's a lot of coursework, a lot of examinations, a lot of registrations that these have to make. They're paying lots of money. But at the community level, for those working with our future, All their training's free. They only pay for whatever internet costs there are. They learn all the rules of the game, even the weirdest ones, how to make and manage small leagues, how to create training pods for specific skills. But the most important part is 2 days a month. These coaches go out into the community to work with the most vulnerable, homeless, poor, orphaned, so that they can find the talent there. And for those who've watched international sport, you've seen the end result of this program. That's when, during a break in the game, some well-known athlete steps up to announce he's created a fund for the community he came from. Because as a youth, they saw his ability and decided to give him opportunity through scholarship in that district system. This is the same program. And this entire time, the regional partnership is pulling in all this information from all of these people, coming to all of these activities run by all of these nonprofits, and they're organizing it and getting ready to deliver it. And this is when the third and final level of that collaborative steps in. That's the national vendor partnership. Doctors, lawyers, professors from universities, former ministers at government departments. These advise these groups, sensitize them on the basic practices of successful negotiations on an even larger scale with other communities, districts, provinces, even across borders, increasing commerce and jobs and lowering tariffs and taxes that they pay. They even reveal to them protocols that government departments, ministries, institutions, heads of state have to keep people from banging down their doors by the thousands every day. Well, they'll know these protocols. They'll be able to walk in through these doors. And what they'll have to say, quite simple: we have information you desperately need. How many people in the nation? Where do they come from? What do they do? Eat? Where? What do they watch on their devices? If they got a device, what kind? It's called demographics. And in the networks of nonprofit collaboratives worldwide, demographics is our stock and trade, because we do the one thing no other group on this planet does. We count everybody. There's no exceptions. If you live, if you breathe, you get counted. Governments don't count all the people within their borders. Certainly, they have a census every 10 years, but if it's like the census in my nation, it's nothing more than political theater. Politicians pounding pulpit on who they refuse to count, which means not everyone gets counted. This is information many governments need desperately in their negotiations with groups like the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund, the groups that float their budgets for the year. Accurate information. Many people know what this does is it means a better end to negotiations. Tariffs and taxes go down, which means now you've got this collaborative that's complete. Corporations, investment groups, businesses, ones that have been waiting and watching for opportunity, start to see these collaboratives as islands of stability in areas where before they weren't certain what they saw. And you know they won't want to talk to the government. They want to talk to these groups about how they got this done, what methods they use. They want to talk to the business community to ask about what opportunity there is for them to have an office or a shop or a warehouse or even a factory, increasing commerce and jobs, lowering tariffs and taxes. Other members of the network of collaborative systems worldwide, they'll want to come in and have these new collaborative systems show them what they do online, in person, like you and I are doing here. Even make plans with individual communities for things such as sistering programs, where both communities face the same issues every day, but being in different parts of the world, they have different resources they have at hand. This attracts attention from all of these groups of learning all over the world, wanting to study what effect those resources they have will occur. Well, let me say it rightly. what effect those resources will have on the outcomes that each of these communities achieves. That means more commerce coming in, architects, scientists, engineers, and of course the interns that they'll want from the local community universities and colleges, which start to research in what they're able to offer those youth at large. They'll go into these communities to take measurements, conduct studies that could last for years. They'll need places to stay, food to eat, things to do. Commerce rises again. And of course, the results of anything they put out by international law, they have to be able to include who their partners were, which includes the name of the community and of the associations and collaborative systems they're working with. That means that what we do here is, in the age of information, which of course is this new age that we're coming into, it avails them that possibility of being right at the forefront of this new age, of passing information back and forth. What else can I say? Well, there's so many other ways that this can move forward. Some of these communities will have businesses coming to them on the side and asking if, for a small fee they pay, they could do a study in their community on something like how many people might like lemon lime soda because it's a product they sell. And in the nations where this collaborative system occurs, they're wealthy. They do very well. My nation has 28 different types of nonprofit collaborative systems. Many other nations of wealth have very close to the same. And by bringing such systems in and using the knowledge and experience of the people who live there to build them, we're taking something that builds from the ground up, not from the top down, where so many miss. From the ground up, we take care of everyone. That's the plan. How do we get this together? Start at the ground. Gather your friends, the people you've worked with over and over on programs that have come from abroad for a few, 3-4 months, and plan to do something that will last for years and years. I imagine I could come up with a lot more stories, but here's that first possibility. Thank you.
Excellent. Excellent. So, what's your closing remarks, and how you want to collaborate with World Talent Economic Forum institutions, and how we can make progress together with Global North and Global South?
Well, what happens here is some of the partners that we're due to sign with here in a very few short weeks, among them is a group called the BIPOCA Alliance. They have been at the forefront of negotiating for peaceful existence in areas where conflict and mass migration have been the norm, helping to set the stage for governments that haven't been able to be governments for a good long time to restore their infrastructure, their works. And we do have many nations out there where the governments there have been reduced to having what we call ghost departments, a room with a desk and a chair, but no one's there. But the ministers therein are still under obligation to bring in a certain amount of commerce and monies. And there are those out there who've had to resort to bribes, which simply perpetuates this global system of wars. So ending that system comes down to bringing all this together. The division of UNESCO that I work with is the International Dance Council. My first job was to bring that cultural education back into the system. Well, they asked for dance education, but of course, that can't come alone. And there are a number of ways where we can get this done. Working with those groups on the ground who've been valiantly struggling with chapters in cities, but not chapters with others in their own community. We show them how to get that done, or how we've done it. How they get it done, they may have a few different methods that they'll use. And the collaborations that start to develop these other programs, agreements with those nations for development monies, so that they can start working from the very top in restoring those interactions between universities and other investment groups to come in and start doing studies on issues related to global warming itself. So yes, the goal here is to align with all of the promise and principles of the United Nations Global Compact and bring this together so that once they see how well this is working, they may take it under their advisement as well. And of course, be able to add additional funding. We already have CID, UNESCO, offering free tuition for those who are in the dance community to obtain international dance degrees. And of course, an international dance degree is able to afford those that have it the ability to travel on a much larger scale and unite with others that engage in the same activities they do. And of course, we can see this happening very easily with other cultural activities of many kinds. So yes, government departments, heads of state, I'm ready to talk, as well as my partners.
Thank you. Thank you. This is excellent discussion. Hopefully through this process, our audience can learn and collaborate with your ecosystem. Thank you. Thank you for joining the session. I request all of our audience, please share this content with the government agency, corporation, academia, and the community who can join in these communities and collaborate with them and make a meaningful contributions for the global goods. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you. Bye-bye and take care.
Thank you, Dr. Sharif.